Well, thank you very much, PNG Core, Anthony and the team for inviting me. Prime Minister, ministers, dignitaries, my colleague Chris, and everyone else for being here. Thank you very much. So I'm going to spend 10 or so minutes talking a little bit about SpaceX and Starlink, and hopefully give you a snapshot as to where we are today. But in typical SpaceX form, because we're a rocket company, I have to start with a video.
All stations verify, ready for launch. FTS.
FTS go. Props go.
AVI.
AVI's go.
GNC.
GNC go.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What an amazing technology company. So in terms of big ideas, I don't think there is one quite this big, but Elon Musk, our boss, has this audacious goal, and that is that we should be able to become multi-planetary species. So we should be able to live and enjoy and spend time in space. So to do that, SpaceX developed the first reusable rocket. We call it the Falcon 9. And the reason for that is that if we all and our children want to enjoy the opportunity of travelling into space, we have to lower the cost of access. So we need to be able to make it affordable. The only way to do that is to create a vehicle that you can use multiple times. He often says that if you were flying from Melbourne to Los Angeles and the aeroplane could only travel once, none of us could afford the ticket. But because we use an aeroplane multiple times, we then can afford it. So why is it that a rocket is the only piece of machinery that we only use once from a transport point of view? So we developed this reusable rocket, the Falcon. It's semi-reusable because we keep the large part of it, but every time we launch, we have to throw part of it away. And that really does not sit well with the company. So we're now developing our new rocket, and you may have seen it land there. It's called Starship. It's about 3 times larger than the Falcon 9. 2-stage rocket, and the beauty of this is that all of the components can be launched, used, returned, refueled, and launched again. So this is the vehicle that we hope to deploy equipment, Starlink satellites in the next year or so, and then humans, and take payload and humans to Mars this decade. So it's an amazing an idea, and actually now coming into reality. The company itself, we're still relatively small. We're only 20-something years old. There's 14,000 people. But one of the incredible things is that this Falcon technology has become so reliable that NASA certified the rocket that we could then launch humans. So we took astronauts, or we currently take astronauts to the International Space Station. We take private astronauts into space. And in fact, we've launched 50 people at this particular point into space on 13 different missions. But the reusability aspect of the rocket has enabled us to increase the cadence of launches. So when I joined the company, I think we launched 8 times that year. Now we've launched more than 300 times, and in fact this year we're hoping that we'll probably launch somewhere between 130 and 140 times. So that roughly equates to 2-3 times per week. So it launches so often now that it's not even a big event within the company. It's just something that happens all the time. But because we launch so many rockets and we have so much cadence and capability, we decided about 5 years ago that we would start to build and launch our own satellite constellation. Why do we do that? It's such an interesting fact that across the globe, we're also used to having our phones and connectivity, and I won't even leave my house if I don't have my phone with me. But there's still a third of the world that doesn't have access to the internet, doesn't have this availability. And there's another third where the connectivity technology is so poor. So we decided that this should be solved, and we developed Starlink. So what is Starlink? Oops. So Starlink is a constellation of low Earth orbit satellites. And what does that mean? That means that we launch them to a particular place in space, which is not as far as a geostationary satellite. And we launch so many of them that they're flying across the Earth, and at any particular point, anywhere in the Earth, there is a number of Starlink satellites above you. So at this particular point, we've launched more than 7,200 satellites, of which that constellation now enables us to deliver to almost 5 million people across the globe today. It's the technical part of it, so we can deliver those services, but you want to actually get to the people. So the important part is that we spend a lot of time working through regulatory processes, banking processes, and to enable us to actually deliver to a particular country. And at this particular point, we've opened up to 125 different markets across the globe. So anybody can go to starlink.com/map, and you'll see where the product is available and where it will be coming. One thing that I will highlight from this map is that because the Starlink, we developed a technology of having inter-satellite lasers, so lasers that are connecting each satellite to each other. It means that a service can now be delivered actually technically anywhere in the world. So we have thousands of ships sailing across all of the oceans and seas, and they have the same level of technology and service wherever they are. So the fact is that if the Starlink terminal can see the sky, so it obviously won't work in this auditorium, but if we're outside, it will work. And we actually don't care these days whether it's stationary or mobile. It can be on a aeroplane, a boat, a train, a vehicle. In fact, we had Starlink antennas on our last rocket launch, and we were connecting to our rocket as it was travelling at 27,000 kilometres an hour. So incredible technology. But I can't stress enough, the service is ubiquitous and available technically everywhere. What is that? What does it do? Because the satellites are so close to the Earth, relative to a geostationary service, physics means that the signal can get to the satellite and down to the ground much faster. So what does that mean? That means that we can deliver much faster speed services. So this is some data that we have. We typically say that the download to a Starlink terminal might be 300, 400 megabits per second, and the upload is upwards of 50 megabits per second. Compared to a typical geo service, it's much, much faster. Importantly though, as I mentioned, that the satellites are so close to the Earth, the latency is much lower. So what this represents, and it's not necessarily a comparison against geostationary services, but I'm just using it as an example, that the service that people enjoy when they're using Starlink is very much a fibre-like service. So it's like the service that you use in your office or your home if you have fibre connection. How do we do that? So we have 3 different terminals available. A high-performance terminal, which is the product that we put on top of aeroplanes, boats, cell towers, etc. We have our standard enterprise terminal, which we also provide to consumers. And we just launched our latest product in the last few months, which is this product here, which is a Starlink Mini. The fascinating part here is this is a terminal that will take AC or DC connection, so you can plug it into the cigarette lighter of your car, you can put it on the top of your house, you can put it on the top of your boat, and from this device, you simply plug it in, point it to the sky, and you'll receive hundreds of megabits per second of service. Has a Wi-Fi modem built in, so it's just so simple, it's just plug and play. And I think one of Elon's mantras is that this product has to be so simple, anybody can install it, anybody can use it. And he often says that you can point it to the sky and plug it in, or you can plug it in and point it to the sky. It's your choice, but that's all you have to do. And as I mentioned, so the speeds are phenomenal, the latency is very low, and now that we have such a large and well-networked constellation, we're now seeing an availability, so how often is it on and how often is it off, of greater than 99.9%. So if anybody is familiar with the satellite industry, it's quite a phenomenal uptime, we call it. Resiliency, and this is so important. So it's great to have a product and it's up all of the time, but why is it up all the time? And I think this is what I was talking about before. The fact that our satellites talk to each other means that if there is ever a situation with any of our ground infrastructure, if there's a fibre cut, etc., our system will automatically find another gateway or another POP to connect to. So once the packet has left the terminal and hit the satellite network, there's no way that it can't get to the ground. So it produces an incredibly resilient product. In terms of the amount of capacity that we have, because the satellite industry, as we've always known, it's a finite resource, it's very expensive to put satellites in the air. So how much capacity do we have? So at the moment, on a weekly basis, launching a couple of rockets every week, we put about 4.5 terabits per second of capacity. And just relatively, that's more than the next biggest satellite operator has in total. So that's what we're doing. And I think the exciting part, people have seen Starship, our next generation rocket. People might be aware that that rocket will carry in the realm of 5 times more payload than our current Falcon rocket. So the next generation and the amount of capacity that we will put into the market in a couple of years' time will be based on the fact that our rockets will be flying more regularly and they'll be carrying 5 times the amount of capacity. So we have a lot of capacity today. We'll have an enormous amount tomorrow. I think I've already covered some of that. But I think some key part here is that, as I mentioned, of the launches that we did this year, 65 of those are dedicated to the Starlink network. So we're putting our own resources to launch those, to build this satellite network that is unlike anyone has ever seen. And to do that, we actually build everything. So the terminals are manufactured by us in Austin, Texas. The satellites are built by us in Redmond, Seattle, Washington, beg your pardon. And to do that, to enable this growth, we have to manufacture very quickly. So when we talk about engineering excellence, we build 50, it's actually almost 60 satellites per week. So we build and launch that amount. The satellites themselves, people ask how long do they last? We say maybe 5 to 7 years. We've already started to deorbit our first satellites because of the capability difference between that one and the ones that we do today. And just while we're talking about deorbiting, we're very, very conscious of the orbit, the world. We track most of the debris in space. We're tracking, cataloguing it and sharing that data with everybody else. We can actually fly our satellites, so once they're up there, we're in full control of those. And when it's time to deorbit, we simply fly them a little closer to the atmosphere. They orbit for a day or so, and then they completely vaporise when they hit the atmosphere. So it's very important for us not to fill the space with rubbish. But why is that so fun? Why is that so important? And I think bottom line is it's the community and the markets that we're serving that is the most important part. So technology, that's great. It's all working well. But why do we do this? We do it so that when you're a user of Starlink and you have this and you want to travel from Australia and you want to go to Canada, you can take it. It works there. It works in Australia. It works on the boat on the way there. So it's one technology that is used and is ubiquitous around the world. But the markets that we serve are endless. We often say, and it's right, if you can have a fibre connection, you should have a fibre. That's great. You may use a Starlink as a backup or a secondary service if something goes wrong with that fibre connection. But if you can't have a fibre connection, it appears today people use Starlink. So they use it for backup services or primary service. So as soon as you're in a remote location or you're in a mobility situation, the Starlink product is a perfect one. And we sell it across all of these markets: retail, hospitality, as I say, transportation, aviation. I think we're on 400 aeroplanes, growing rapidly. One that I've highlighted here, healthcare and medical. I look after the Asia Pacific region, and I think on last count, we're working on in excess of 100,000 different school projects. Sorry, not projects, 100 projects that add up to more than 100,000 schools, because it's the schools in remote rural locations that have suffered badly with not having any form of technology, and this is a product that you can take straight there. And in terms of the digital divide, those students in that rural school can enjoy the same connectivity as they can here in Sydney. So it's phenomenal. And of course, across all of these industries, we're great friends with the oil and energy business. That's a market that has encapsulated this technology very early. I don't have it here, but the maritime industry, I think if anybody has been on a cruise ship, it has always suffered because you have so many people in one ship. So just the capacity that was available to you yesterday was a challenge. I think we're on virtually every cruise vessel available across the world today, and it just has changed the whole experience on board. Thousands and thousands of cargo vessels, people who apply to go to work, young people who want to become mariners, but they don't want to be disconnected for 15 days as they sail across the Pacific, now don't need to. So this crew welfare, looking after folks. So it's a great opportunity. So again, Starlink, we think of it as an ISP that connects globally. There isn't a part on the Earth today that technically we can't deliver a service to. So because it's a low Earth orbit satellite constellation and the satellites are traversing across the world, the same satellites that fly